Hello, everybody, and welcome to Becoming Invincible podcast. I am your host, Tahlia, and I am so excited to have you here. This podcast is to reframe your mindset, challenge those limiting beliefs that you may have when you're navigating all the situations in your life. And I'm here to give you tools to help you navigate them in such a healthy way and to harness your personal power that we tend to lose along the way. So settle up, get ready, grab a coffee, and get ready for some juice in each episode as I throw you what life has thrown me and we can navigate this shit together. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Happy New Year. I hope you have all had a beautiful holiday season. To be very transparent, when I'm recording this episode, I'm actually still in 2024, but that's how we have to be. We got to be more ahead. So then, when things happen in life, that I have episodes for you guys to listen to and things like that. And also with the girls, like they start school at different times. So I'm not going to have as much time to be able to drop an episode when I want to. So this is all about thinking ahead, guys. But I really hope you guys had a beautiful Christmas and a beautiful New Year. Most of my episodes will then be, I think there'll be like one or two after this one that will still be in 2024 recorded. And then after that, it will all be 2025. Because I'll be definitely in a different energy. I just didn't get to really do episodes on these topics. I got so much to really talk on. It's amazing. So guys, I really hope you guys had a beautiful holiday season. You got drunk, you went on holiday, you did all the things, you spent time with family. It's always the best season. I just love it. And I hope you guys are having a beautiful start to your new year. I'm glad we're all back. I hope we're in good energy. And I think it's a great start to our beautiful 2025 year because anything can happen. All right, so now my episode today, I'm going to do on intrusive thoughts because we all have them and I have had them. At the recording of this episode, it was actually the weekend gone. And then when you're actually listening to this, it would be months. So anyway, so on average, we all have intrusive thoughts. They come into our mind when we're driving, when we're doing something, always at the inconvenience time. And generally, they're a story that's made in our head unconsciously. So consciously is what we're thinking and what we are known to be thinking in the moment or of the day. It's the thoughts that you know that are there and you're consciously thinking of them, okay? And then unconsciously is where there's thoughts happening and they're tied to a story of whatever you've gone through in your life where like you're not worthy, you're not loved, no one loves you, no one likes you, whatever it is. That can tailor to an intrusive thought, okay? So in my life, for example, that I've not felt wanted or belonged, things like that. So an intrusive thought that has happened for me is I don't believe anyone would care if I died. Like no one will give a shit. And so that's because that's tailored to a story that I've been abandoned in my life to some degree. And also that I've never felt like I belonged or like no one really gets me, things like that. So this is what I mean, how our thoughts can always be tailored, like especially when they're unconscious, because the difference between an unconscious thought and a conscious thought. So an unconscious, it's a story you have no idea that you're running in your head. It's a thought process that you had no idea is actually happening because you're not actually actively listening to it, but it's there in the back of your mind. And that's generally how we generate dreams. And so it's kind of like, when you get drunk, okay, and you know how everyone makes the excuse, but I was drunk. I find whatever the person does when they're drunk, whatever you say, whatever you do, I actually really believe that it's what they want to. So how someone behaves drunk is actually how they want to behave. So if someone fucks up when they're drunk, that's actually what their intentions were wanting. That's what they want to do. The truth always comes out, So so it's sort of like that where instead of actually you're drunk, it's like your dreams are made up of the thoughts, like the unconscious thoughts you have as well, because it's all an experience, Anyway, so they can come up and it's all human as well. So I want us to understand in this episode that it's all human to have intrusive thoughts. It's not any shame around that, because I think a lot of the times when we say to a friend, like for me, that is my intrusive thought, like this weekend, is that no one would actually care if I died. And it's interesting because if I say that to some of my friends, they would actually be so worried that I'm going to do something. And it's not that, because I know now, and this is why I always encourage you guys, and this is why I created my podcast, is that our mind is always going to be greater than anything anyone can control us over. So if we have the power and the ability in our mind, we have actually so much power over ourselves that we cannot be ever controlled, manipulated, all the things. And I know what it's like to be manipulated and controlled, like 100%. It's part of my story. And so we have so many thought processes. Okay, so I did a little bit of like a research facts, and I don't really we just take it with a grain of salt, guys. Like, I'm not really completely in vibe with it, but it is a good average basis to get our heads around. Okay, so on average, the person, like all of us, have a day. So on average, all of us as people, men and women, whoever we'd like to, entitled to, whatever it's called, men and women, all of us, the average thought process and the average thoughts people have a day is up to 60,000 thoughts a day. Now, I do strongly believe that a lot of that percentage would be women, because we think, feel, and do all at the same time, viscerally, in that whole moment. It can make men feel inferior. And to the men listening to this, you could probably nod in your head being like, yes, Tiles, totally get ya. You kind of do, because in an argument, okay, on a rough example, in an argument, generally speaking, us as women, we can think, feel, and do at the same time, right? So when we're in an argument, we can say what our feelings are and what the situation is, why we're having this argument, whatever it is. And then also what's happening in that time, we're also feeling about it because it's made us feel a certain way. And we can bring up stuff from the past of like, well, it happened this time, and this time. And men can be like, holy shit, because they can't think on their feet as quick as us and as efficient as us, because of how our brains are actually made. And the actual difference between a brain scan in a woman and a brain scan in a man. Now, if we want more in depth about that, I have 4 episodes and they're called Learning Your Superpowers. And in the first episode, I actually talk about the different brain scans. So if anyone wants to know more, go have a listen, because it is a lot. And I use a lot of my own experience with my partner now, in that we're not perfect. It's just how life is and how you navigate. So before you guys are thinking, oh yeah, Tahlia, not all of us is like you, perfect. I'm definitely not. Let's just take everyone off the pedestal there. So we have 60,000 thoughts per day on average. And I definitely believe a lot of that average is women. I would actually say it's probably 80% as women. And then the other 20%, is men. Honestly, because we do that viscerally so well. That's how we're wired. Men literally are singular focused. They are literally only doing. They can only concentrate on one thing at a time, right? They're either doing, they're either feeling, or they're either thinking. Like, they just can't do that all at once. It's really impossible, which is okay. That's what makes us beautiful and unique as different sexes, okay? Because I know that there's this thing about, the battle of the sexes in the world, and I just think that's not really a healthy thing for us to be having in the world. A lot of us women would have at least 36 thoughts a day on our appearance and comparing, because a lot of the time I do believe, in a percentage wise, most of that is women. We compare ourselves so much to social media, other women, where the fuck am I going? Why isn't my life looking like hers? All the things, honestly. And so I do believe that, us as women, we would have on average minimum 36 negative thoughts. They don't specify it, and I'm just like, well, it would be a minimum of 36 us, because that's just how society and how, it depends on our environment as well, who we surround ourselves around and everything like that. So again, we are who we surround ourselves. At least the 5 people that you surround yourself with closely, you are that. And if you don't like those people, you need to change your environment because they are a reflection of you. And then so roughly they break it down here by the looks of it in a percentage wise. 75% of the thoughts are repetitive. That makes sense because they're the stories that we get told and get sold when we're, a little girl, little boy. Okay. It's how we're raised, our peers, like what we did at school, things like that. That's the influence in our life. So that makes sense. We have a lot, like 75% of that is the repetitive thoughts. And then they're saying that on average there's 70 to 80%. So yeah, okay, roughly probably 75%, but 70 to 80% of the thoughts are negative. And that makes total sense because again, our environment, who we surround ourselves in, what are we consuming? Social media, podcast wise, because there's a lot of drama podcasts. Like you can actually listen to people bitch about people, or bitch about celebrities, or you can they give you all the dirt and the drama of like TV shows like Maths and things like that. It really depends what you're consuming, on social media. Everyone likes to demonize social media and TV, and I'm like, okay, well, what exactly are you consuming on those? Everything can be bad for you, but it's all about in moderation. And what are you consuming? What are you actually watching? If we watch too much reality TV, that's actually a detriment to us. Totally feel all of us mums or women that we can actually decompress to a reality series. 100%. I'm with you guys. I do that. But if we do that too much, it actually really gives a lot more of a negative in our brain. We default to more of a negative. When we consume ourselves with reality so much, we are actually comparing, and we are actually changing the way we think and feel about things. Again, it's all about what we're consuming, who we're around, everything in life is, okay? And then it's about 6.5 transitions per minute is our thought processes. So what they mean by that of 6.5, so the transitions per minute is like our thoughts, like the different thought patterns. So how much we flick through to a different thought. So we'll be thinking about, okay, I'm going to go wash the dishes. Boop. Oh yeah, I'm going to pick up the kids at the time. Boop. I got to, whatever it is. Does my husband still love me? You know what I mean? Whatever it is. We flick through thoughts that quickly. So it's actually pretty when we put it down to things like that, it's really interesting actually. So how to push through intrusive thoughts. Okay, because I actually had one of my friends, she came to me once and was like, oh, do you ever get intrusive thoughts? And I was like, yeah, definitely. I don't think it ever goes away. I have had more of them being a mum than I have had pre-kids. I think it's just when we're wired as women. I had a lot of intrusive thoughts when the girls were babies, and doing it on my own, they were in the bath, and because they would bath together, and I would just be like, I need to go grab something. And I was like, okay, they're having a bath. I need to quickly just go grab something because I've forgot a nappy or something like that. So I'd literally just go, okay, and I'd quickly run and go grab it and then run and get back just in that time, so nothing would happen, because I'd have an intrusive thought of me going to do that, and in that quick time, one of them would drown somehow. And so you got to, how to push through an intrusive thought is to literally tell yourself it's not real. Because a lot of the time it's a negative story that's that's happening. It's like a negative story of some kind that it's happening, because we always want to do, especially as a mum, we always want to do the best for our kids. We always want the best for them, and we want to help them, and we don't want anything to happen to them. I feel like that mama bear comes out and we're just like, I don't want anything to happen to you. I want the best for you, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So, you just don't want anything to happen to your little lion cub even, or your bear cub, so we can get pretty protective like that. And when we have an intrusive thought happen, it's like, oh my God, that could happen. They could drown. They could do this. I'm a shit mum, blah, blah, blah. That's how that compounds. How to push through is to tell yourself this is not real and it's not happening. Because the odds and the chances of your child drowning, if you have to quickly run to a room and run back, is very slim. So let's not just go and dive into that negative thought like, it can happen, Tahlia. Oh my gosh. Okay, yes, it definitely can. But so can getting eaten by a shark, or getting hit by a car. So we just got to really just expand our mind a bit and go, okay, this is not actually happening and this isn't true. Because a lot of the time that's just what intrusive do. They're there to sort of knock us as well, because they're from some story we've created in our life. And so they generally knock us a little bit and be like, oh my gosh, like I'm not good enough, or, no one will care about me, things like that. So I've had intrusive thoughts, like I said, on the weekend. And so one of mine was like, nobody would care if I wasn't here anymore. And so, which is not true, right? So, but I feel that way sometimes in my life where, I have my podcast and I have my platform. Sometimes it comes across that way, like with my partner or my friends. And I feel like, wow, it seems like sometimes when I really need somebody, they're not there. So then I make a story being like, well, if I died, would anyone actually give a shit? Obviously, my kids would. And I would never do anything silly because I care about them so much. So on the weekend, I had this intrusive thought that I'm just like, I just don't think anyone would care about me if I wasn't here anymore. And it's interesting how thoughts come back around, because for me, it would be an unconscious thought. And it's kind of a cycle in a way, because I had this same thought when I was 21 and I am now 31. So 10 years ago, I had this thought, and this is when I was starting my relationship with my 6-year relationship, and I actually attempted to not be here anymore. And I don't say that lightly. It was a negative time in my life. And he definitely helped me through that time the best that he could. So I went to a therapist and I was chatting to him about a lot of my emotions and that. It's interesting because this is how much I say about your mind and how much that is like one of your most prized possessions is your mind, your mindset, massively. There's so many layers to it. There's so much that we can do for it. It's not just about thinking happy thoughts, okay? And so it's interesting that this thought process came back again, because the reason I wanted to not be here anymore was actually so silly for me looking back on now. But 21-year-old me, it felt like it was the end of the world. And this is also really good when we can sort of be there for our kids and sort of understand what they go through, because it is interesting where, depending on what age you are, sometimes when we go through a situation, it feels so real. And it feels like it's the end of the world in that moment. And you're just thinking, oh my God, how will I ever survive this? So 10 years ago, the reason why I didn't want to be here anymore is because I didn't think any of my friends cared about me. Because they were, at that time, we were all fighting and it wasn't very good, and they were just saying nasty things. And I'm just like, I'm not like that, blah, blah, blah. It felt so real at 21-year-old. And to want to do that to myself over that reason now at 31 is I would never do that. It seems like, why would someone end their life over something like that? But this is where we can understand that this happens in the world, with teenagers, and it's really horrible that happens. And bullying is such a massive thing that goes hand in hand with that. And we don't understand sometimes as parents, like, why would my child want to do that, or a child want to do that? And it's just that it can feel so big and so real for them, because high school feels fucking real. School feels real. In that moment, you are navigating so many things, schooling in general, friend groups, if they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, there's so many moving parts. It's a lot, like, where we're all like feeling it and things like that. So sometimes even when you're in your adult life, everything can just feel like, holy shit, this feels like so big. In particular for me with the girl's dad's situation, that felt so big. I mean, it is a fucking big thing on its own, but it just felt so like, holy shit, I don't even know how I'm going to get through this. I really didn't think I was going to make it through sometimes. How did I get here? And is this ever going to get better? It's just in those moments that when you go through situations, and they become a lot more and more when you get older and in your adult life, when you go through a lot of things, it feels real in that moment. And I want us to all honor that and understand that it can feel real in that moment. But we have to also understand that we've also been in multiple moments like this. And that whatever you're thinking as an intrusive thought, whether you want to be here or not, some thoughts my friends and I have had is like, I just want to just randomly just pull my car into that wall, run my car into that wall. So what would happen if I just do that? Or it's kind of when you're a child and you're understanding your boundaries, and it's like, don't touch the hot stove, but what you want to do is touch the hot stove, right? And if you do that, you get burnt, right? So it's all that it comes into it, and that's such a human experience as well, where you don't want to, like, it's like you can't do something, but you do want to do that. And so how we push through our, circling back to intrusive thoughts here, is that how we can push through them is to understand and tell ourselves that it's not real and it's not happening, because that it's not, that all it is a thought, and you let the thought pass you by. So you just let that thought come in and go, and you don't give it any feeling towards it, because it's not true. But sometimes it's easier said than done, because it can feel real. Like I said, it can be related to a situation and it can feel real in that moment. I give you compassion where you just can't, you feel like, I just can't push this aside, or I can't get through this. Like, it's so understandable. Life can sometimes feel too real that we just can't, we don't think we have the strength to do it. And that's where our belief comes into us, and understanding that we can and we will, and we'll always be able to tread the water when every wave comes through, right? Just to understand that we'll all have intrusive thoughts and we're all human. So when people get defensive, when they're just like, no, but, and they want to believe the thought, that's like a different story. Okay, when you see people that want to believe their own stories, they generally won't do anything. It's all for sort of attention, where sometimes, honestly, forgive me when I say this, but we've all met some of us might have all met people that it doesn't matter what you say or do, they're just not going to listen. But they're not actually going to do anything either. It's more just the attention that they want. And when it comes into that, when people do that, it's actually a dopamine hit. So when we actually swing to like a polarity scale here, so you have completely high vibe positive, and then we have completely negative and like miserable, okay? On the polarity scale, right? And then when we swing so hard to the low vibration of the negative thoughts and things like that, and people want to believe their story and they absolutely live in victimhood, they're actually so addicted to the dopamine hit that they get from people being like, poor you, I'm struggling, poor me, feel sorry for me. Or they might even like bitch about people. It's actually, they get such an adrenaline, and we can actually get so addicted. So it's not actually anyone's fault. Like, I know people be like, oh, Tahlia, there's some horrible people out there. I couldn't agree more with you guys, but that's literally actually a 1% of people, or maybe it's a 2%. I can't actually know the percentage, but it's literally like a 2%. There's evil people in the world. A lot of the other times is actually people who are just, they're so addicted to their own story. Like, they're so addicted to poor me, feel sorry for me, bitching about people. They're just so addicted to that. And they don't even, some people don't even want to be, but they are. And then you get the people that love it, and they're just so addicted to that, and they just sit in that, and they want to bitch about people because they get such a high from, it's like anyone who likes roller coasters or rides, and that, adrenaline rush can be so addicting. It's the same thing with when people do this, where they're like addicted to being poor me, they're addicted to bitching about people, and it's everyone's wrong and not them, and they're better. They actually get so addicted to that, and they actually like thrive off it. It's actually like an addiction, and people don't realize they're actually in it and doing it most of the time. So that's like a so different thing when people are fully swung on that, spectrum, and then we just want to sort of give ourselves a balance, because we can just, it's sort of like when we think of, those, I actually don't know what they're called. I think it's like 5 or 6 balls, and they're like metal, and they're on the string. And then you just literally take one of the balls on one of the sides and you go knock it, and then the other ball on the other side goes knocks it, and it goes do 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 do. Don't know what they're called, but when we think of it like that, it wants it as a balancing. But you just think of the one ball, and you're swinging the one ball, and it goes from side to side. Okay, like maybe like a clock when it goes tick-tock, okay? And we want to just have that balancing as much as we can in our life, that we just can swing to a negative and swing to a positive. And it's not about just sitting there and living in there and getting stuck in that like emotion. It's just about understanding that I can feel negative emotions, but I can also want to live more in the positive, and just let it all be a flowy TikTok effect. Okay. So that's just like sort of like our goal that we would want to keep a balance of in our life in general. So I would really recommend everyone, honestly, telling yourself that it's not real and it's not happening. It just really depends on what the thought actually is. And then also, I really believe that gratitude is such a big thing. So you could even write down, like, when you feel like it's like taking over, you can like write down, what do you have in your life? And sometimes when we actually put pen to paper and we write down what we have in our life, and you can actually read like, holy shit, like my life is actually quite beautiful. Because most of us don't really understand that if we have a roof over our head, if we can drive a car and, send our children to school, or even have children, or, experience the life that we do, honestly, we actually live a quite a rich, fulfilling life. But we get so compared, and we compare ourselves as well to other people and what other people have. And a lot of the time, it can be a lot more materialistic on what people have. Like, oh my God, I am not there yet. I don't have that. So I'm less than. And we need to really reframe our mind that it's not about that we're less than, that we're more than most, because we are. Those of us that have that sort of lifestyle, we can listen to a podcast like this and, things like that. We are very blessed. So I really just navigating and like getting back into gratitude. What do you have? Because generally, a lot of the time, what we have in our life right now, we once prayed for that, which is true. Right. For me, I always wanted to be a mum, and I have two beautiful daughters. It's not the circumstance that I wanted to have them in, but I have them, and they're my gift from that whole hard time. And like, I have a beautiful podcast platform. I get to connect with you all. And, I never would have imagined I would ever have a podcast, to be honest. I didn't think that I would be speaking on one. And I've been a guest speaker for other podcasts too. So when you can really understand like the life that you have, and like it was once something that you would always dream of, or like maybe you didn't even know that you could be like this. So your life is always changing and evolving, and you just never know what can happen. And it's just harnessing into that. My thought process, what I'm thinking of right now, isn't real. None of this is happening. I'm a great mom, or I'm a great person. I am so loved, and I am so adored, because a lot of the time we don't feel like we're loved and adored enough because we didn't even feel safe to have it, or we didn't have it growing up, whatever the circumstance is. That's generally where it comes from. It comes from our inner child that needs to be hugged and held and loved and all those things. So yeah, I just think when we can really come to it in that sort of perspective too, I think that can really sort of help us with that. And it's at your own pace to navigate, and it's honestly about telling yourself that it's not real, and it's about what you're consuming too. So change what you're consuming, who you're being around, who are the 5 people you surround yourself with? Are you happy with those 5 people? And, just changing your environment can just change so much, honestly. And then I would say when to seek help is when you're having excessive amount. So when to seek help and when you're having intrusive thoughts, because we can all jump to the gun as soon as you open up to someone and go, oh, I just don't think anyone would care that I was gone, or whatever it may be. People can be like, oh God, she's going to do something crazy. When no, that's not always a sign that someone's going to do something crazy. Sometimes it's just like, they're feeling a lot and they need someone right now. And I just don't, yeah, it's interesting where we can panic now because mental health has been a lot more of a bigger thing, which is amazing. But also it does come as a detriment. There's like anyone who just needs to share something, everyone's like, oh God, like you better go see somebody. It's like, there's nothing wrong with you. All right. There's nothing fucking wrong with you. Sometimes we just need to feel like, especially for a woman, to the men listening, like we just want to feel loved and heard and seen, really. And you just want, and by doing that, you're validating our feelings of being like, okay, fuck, like he does care, or, you know, people do care about me. You know what I mean? Even if you're single in this situation, like even your friends can do that too. We just need to feel validated. And I do believe that men feel that in just a different way. They need to feel validated too, and that they're doing a good job in different ways. And so it's about understanding that that's all we ever want in the end of the day. We all definitely just want love, and we just all want that love in just different ways. And that's why it's always good to get to know people's love languages and stuff. But yeah, so when to seek help is literally when they're just ongoing and they're happening all the time. Generally, intrusive thoughts, they would just happen here and there. I can't tell you on a daily scale. Like for me, it would just be like here and there through the day. It wouldn't be actually like constant. So when they start to become more constant, you can understand like, holy shit, like why am all I thinking about is this? Then that's when you need to ask yourself, do I need to go and talk to someone to unpack something? Because that honestly could be your mind telling you something and being like, hey, like we need to sort ourselves out here, you know? And so that's when I would say that's when you would seek help in that situation. So anyways, guys, hopefully it wasn't too morbid. But anyway, I love and see you all. And just, yeah, the stories and everything that's happening, they're not real. You can move through them. It's human nature to have these thoughts, and they're all a fleeting, passing thought anyway. And honestly, like, you're not broken. Okay? So I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. I'm just going to leave it there. But I'm so glad to be back doing this for the new year, even though I'm still in 2024. But I'm so excited to bring you guys these episodes, and then also have guest speakers that have come on and we've done episodes together. So can't wait to also launch them for you guys. But I will talk to you guys on another episode. You are not broken. You are an absolute beautiful human, and you just need to remind yourself of that.